What do you do when the person you trust most in the world becomes a stranger sleeping next to you? It's 2 a.m. The blue light of her phone is painting shadows on the ceiling, and a single name glows on the screen. It's not mine. I'd seen it before. A casual text, a work email. Nothing to worry about, she'd said. But at 2 in the morning, a heart emoji next to his name felt less like work and more like a betrayal that was about to shatter my entire world. She was my wife, the woman I built my life with, and in that silent, dark room, I realized I didn't know her at all. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped my own phone, because I just found out her office on Wacker Drive closed at 3 p.m. today. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from, what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. It started subtly. Sarah, my wife of 8 years, began guarding her phone like it held state secrets. Late nights at the office became the norm, followed by exhausted sighs when she finally came home. Our conversations, once the highlight of my day, became clipped and transactional. "How was your day?" I'd ask. "Fine. Busy," she'd reply, her eyes already glued to her screen. The warmth that once filled our Chicago brownstone felt like it was being sucked out, replaced by a chilling draft I couldn't locate. We used to be a team. Now I felt like a spectator in my own life, watching her drift further and further away. The first real crack appeared on a crumpled receipt I found in her coat pocket. Dinner for two at a fancy place on Rush Street. Dated for a night she was supposedly swamped with a deadline. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. "Oh, that was a client dinner, Mark. You know how it is." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Then came the credit card statements. Hotel charges I didn't recognize. The Langham, the Peninsula. Always on nights she was traveling for work. The excuses were smooth, practiced. She was a master of deflection, making me feel like I was the crazy one for even asking. "Why are you so insecure all of a sudden?" she'd ask, her voice laced with annoyance. "Don't you trust me?" The manipulation was so good I almost believed her. I almost believed I was the problem. The villains, Sarah and her affair partner, David, a smug senior partner at her firm, thought they were untouchable. I overheard them once. I'd come home early, and she was on the phone in the garden, her back to me. Her voice was light, flirtatious, a tone she hadn't used with me in years. "Has no idea," she whispered, followed by a giggle. "He's so naive, it's almost sad." David's muffled voice on the other end said something, and she laughed again. "Don't worry, he'd never leave. He wouldn't know what to do without me." My blood ran cold. Naive. Sad. That's what I was to her. The humiliation burned in my chest, a physical ache that was worse than any punch. I was just a comfortable placeholder, a convenience. They weren't just cheating, were mocking me. That night, I broke. I drove out to Montrose Harbor, the place where I'd proposed to her, and just sat in my car as the city lights blurred through my tears. The whole world felt fragile, like a thin sheet of glass ready to shatter. Every memory we had, every laugh, every promise, was it all a lie? I screamed until my throat was raw, pounding the steering wheel until my knuckles were bruised. I was a loyal husband, a good man. What had I done to deserve this? The pain was a living thing inside me, tearing me apart. But as the sun began to rise over Lake Michigan, something inside me shifted. The heartbreak curdled into something else. Something cold, hard, and sharp. If she wanted to destroy our life, fine, but I wouldn't be the only casualty. I would burn her world to the ground. The next day, I became a ghost in my own home. My mission was simple: gather irrefutable proof. I installed a small voice-activated recorder in her car and discreetly activated location tracking on our shared family plan. I hired a private investigator, a gruff but efficient ex-cop who specialized in infidelity cases. He was worth every penny. He delivered a folder thick with photographs, Sarah and David kissing outside a quiet bar in Lincoln Park, holding hands walking into a boutique hotel, their figures silhouetted against the window of their room. Each picture was a fresh stab to the heart, but I cataloged them with cold precision. I was no longer the heartbroken husband. I was a strategist, an architect of vengeance. My pain was now my fuel. My plan needed two arenas, the legal and the social. I met with the sharpest divorce attorney in Chicago. We laid out the evidence, photos, recordings, financial records, showing she'd spent our joint savings on her affair. In Illinois, Infidelity affects asset division, especially when marital funds are used. I opened a new bank account and quietly moved my personal inheritance into it, locking her out. The social trap was more public. Sarah's parents were old-fashioned and prided themselves on their family's impeccable reputation. Her father was also a major investor in David's law firm. They were throwing a huge 40th anniversary party in 2 weeks at the Drake Hotel. Everyone would be their family, friends, business partners. The stage was set for the grand finale. The night of the party was cinematic. Sarah looked radiant in a designer dress. Bought with our money, of course. She moved through the crowd with an arrogant grace, David occasionally at her side, sharing a smug, secret smile. They thought they were on top of the world. I waited until her father was giving his toast, talking about family, integrity, and the legacy of love he and his wife had built. As he finished to a round of applause, I stepped up to the microphone he'd just left. "I'd like to say a few words, too," I began, my voice steady. 100 faces turned to me. Sarah's smile faltered. I spoke about love and trust, and then, my voice turning to ice, I spoke about betrayal. Then, on the huge projector screens that had been showing a slideshow of her parents, new images appeared. Crystal clear photos of Sarah and David, kissing, embracing. The room fell into a stunned, deafening silence. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. A woman gasped. Sarah's mother started to sob. Her father's face went from confusion to pure, unadulterated rage. He looked from the screen to his daughter, then to David, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. People started whispering, pointing. Sarah just stood there, her face ashen, the color drained from her world. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I just placed my wedding ring on the table next to the microphone, turned, and walked out of the ballroom, leaving the inferno to rage behind me. The next day, I learned David was fired, and her father had pulled all his investments. Her family disowned her. Her friends abandoned her. She was served divorce papers that morning. She lost her job, her family, her reputation, and her home in the span of 24 hours. I had erased her from my life as completely as she had tried to erase my dignity. Sometimes I walk past the coffee shop on Michigan Avenue where we had our first date. The windows are warm and inviting, full of people laughing, building their own stories. I don't feel anger anymore or sadness. I don't feel much of anything. I just kept a single photo from the PI's file, the one of her face the moment she realized her perfect world was a lie. I just look at it and remember that some fires are meant to burn everything away, leaving nothing but cold, quiet ash. The end.